Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story. My name is Stephen Dalton. I'm an Irish storyteller, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. Tonight's story is one that I took great joy in creating, and to be honest, I can't believe I didn't have this idea sooner in my sleep storytelling career. Tonight I present to you Sleepsville, a town full of sleepyheads. You will join me as we move around the town and witness each resident of Sleepsville and what their particular preference is to find the perfect sleep. We will hear sounds from rain to ocean to the sound of a train, and let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear a part 2. Okay, let's do the relaxation session first, which will take a few minutes before tonight's sleep story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, or the floor, or whatever you lie upon tonight. Really feel that support. And beneath all of that, there is the support of the earth, our home, our constant support. And notice that the more you become aware of that support, the more you can let go. The more you can sink into this moment. 9. You are safe. Know that tonight my voice is nothing but a friend, a guide of kindness that will only ever take you to safe places. Allow my voice to be an anchor of peace, guiding you to beautiful, wondrous places. 8. Become aware of your body now. And as you do, just become aware of your breath for a moment. Perhaps take a deep breath in through your nose when you're ready. And breathe out when you're ready. And maybe another deep breath. In and out. And as you become aware of that breath, the breathing out, with each out breath, let go a little more. Maybe move through your body. Check where you're holding tension or pain. Maybe it's in your feet, your lower legs, your thighs, your belly, your chest, your back, or shoulders, your hands, your arms, your neck, or maybe you're like me. Do you hold the tension in your face? Just let it all go now. 7. The day is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. Whatever thoughts you may be having, don't fight them. Just see them for what they are. Thoughts. A symptom of being human. And as they arrive, welcome them. And then just let them go. Watch them float away like leaves on a moonlit river, or clouds passing through a starlit sky. Six. This is your moment. This is your time. You deserve rest. You deserve peace. There is nowhere to be now, nowhere to go, no obligations, absolutely nothing to do but settle into this moment. Five. Peace lives within you. It is always there. It's just waiting to be found, waiting to be felt. Maybe you can find it tonight. Maybe you can journey to that peace with your mind's eye now. Maybe you find it in your chest, or in your head. Wherever you might find it, know that it's a constant friend. For perhaps feel a little gratitude now. Gratitude for the simple things, for the shelter you have tonight, whatever it may be. For the use of your body, for the ability to just lie here and listen to a sleep story. For those you love and who love you, know that you are loved, whoever you are and wherever you are tonight. Three. Begin to engage with your imagination now. Begin to see the sleepiest place you can possibly imagine. A town full of sleepy heads. A town so sleepy you will definitely fit in. A place far away from all that you know. 2. Check in with your body one more time now. Releasing anywhere that you're still holding on. And 1. Completely letting go now. As I tell you tonight's sleep story. There once was a town, though town might be too serious a word for it, sitting quietly between a drowsy river and a hill that couldn't be bothered standing up straight. This place was known, by the few who'd ever heard of it, as Sleepsville, a town full of sleepyheads. Not ordinary sleepyheads, mind you. These were the sort of people who treated bedtime like a national sport and napping like a civic duty. If you ever visited, you'd probably yawn within 10 seconds, whether you meant to or not. Sleepsville wasn't drawn on any map. It refused to stay still long enough. One day, it seemed an inch to the left of a forest. The next, it drifted closer to the sea, as if the whole thing had shuffled in its sleep. The houses leaned comfortably on one another, like old friends nodding off in church. Their chimneys curved slightly, as though they too were stretching before settling in. The streets were soft and gentle, as though they'd been padded for safety, in case the entire population toppled over mid-snooze, which had indeed happened more than once. The people of Sleepsville talked about sleep the way other people talked about politics or baking competitions, over fences, across gardens, half mumbled through half-closed smiles. They compared pillow experiments, traded tales of dozing triumphs, and swapped theories about the best sound to drift off to. They insisted they were discussing serious matters, though anyone listening in might think they were overhearing a group of philosophers trapped in a mattress shop. You could tell a lot about someone in Sleepsville by what floated around their house at night. A faint puff of mist meant the resident preferred a cloud hovering above their bed. A warm glow meant a crackling fire was being fussed over by a dedicated night shift napper. And a soft, steady rumble, something between a purr and a spaceship, usually meant someone was inside, dreaming of planets and pretending they were afloat among the stars. Every street had its own favorite lullaby, and every home had its own eccentric trick for coaxing sleep along. So allow me, if you will, to take you by the hand, gently, so as not to wake anyone, and guide you through this curious place. Tonight, we'll wander past doors that never slam, windows that never quite close, and gardens where even the flowers nod off after lunch. We'll meet the characters who make Sleepsville what it is, a town where the only emergency is running out of bedtime stories. And as we drift along, perhaps you'll find that the sleepiness of this place has a funny way of spreading, almost like a yawn, drifting through the air, waiting to catch you too. If you follow me now, just a few steps down this cobbled path, mind your feet. The stones like to rearrange themselves when no one's looking. You'll see a little house here, with a roof shaped suspiciously like a cereal bowl. That's deliberate. It belongs to Mr. Crumplepatch, the proud owner of Sleepsville's very first custom-made bedtime cloud. Yes, custom-made. He ordered it the same way you or I might order a sandwich, except this cloud came with instructions, a maintenance schedule, and a large red button marked Night Mode. Now, Mr. Crumplepatch wasn't always a cloud man. Long ago, he tried all the usual tricks: warm drinks, heavy blankets, counting sheep until he'd memorized their personalities. Nothing worked. One night, after complaining loudly to anyone who'd listen, he decided the only thing that had ever truly soothed him was the sound of gentle rain. And because he was the sort of person who solved problems by making them far more complicated, he hired a team of very polite engineers to attach a permanent cloud directly above his roof. They were happy to do it, mainly because it meant they got to nap on the job without being scolded. If you look closely, you'll see the cloud hovering just a few inches above the rooftop. It's a plump thing, shaped like a puff of cotton that's eaten too much pudding. Every evening, at precisely 9 o'clock, Mr. Crumplepatch steps out onto his porch, clears his throat, and dramatically presses the big red button. The cloud gives a tiny shiver, then begins releasing the softest, sleepiest drizzle you've ever heard. Inside, this rain doesn't make puddles, or leaks, or damp socks. Oh no, that would be too ordinary. in Sleepsville, the rain patters against the roof in a perfectly rhythmic pattern, as though it's following a musical score. It becomes the soundtrack of Mr. Crumplepatch's dreams. He lies in bed each night with a grin that suggests he's found the secret to existence, which in his case is simply rain on command. And if you linger here just a moment longer, you'll notice something else. The rain seems to affect the whole street. Windows droop a little lower. Curtains sigh. Even the garden gnomes tilt their heads as though preparing for a nap. That's the magic of Mr. Crumplepatch's cloud. It doesn't just lull him to sleep. It makes the entire neighborhood yawn uncontrollably, including, perhaps, you and me. A little further along the lane sits a house that glows with a steady, warm pulse, as though it's breathing out comfort. This is where Mr. and Mrs. Puddlewick live. A couple absolutely convinced that the crackling of a fire is the finest sleep maker ever invented. They don't just like the sound, they depend on it, the way birds depend on morning. If the fire goes quiet for even a second, both of them twitch awake, as though someone has rung a tiny invisible bell inside their heads. So, each night, just as the sky slips into darker shades, Barnaby Blotch arrives with a basket of hand-picked logs. Barnaby is the official nighttime firekeeper, a role he takes far more seriously than most people take their birthdays. He prefers to sleep during the day, claims sunlight makes him sneeze. So the hours when everyone else is drifting off suit him very well. He lets himself in quietly, nods at the cat, who's never once nodded back, and heads straight to the fireplace, as if reporting for duty. Inside, the fire behaves like a pampered pet. It crackles proudly the moment Barnaby steps close. Sparks fluttering up the chimney like tiny orange moths. He kneels in front of it, adding logs with the precision of someone assembling a delicate machine. The flames react instantly, stretching themselves, settling, rearranging with a satisfied hiss. And in the bedroom just down the hall, the puddle wicks sink deeper into their pillows. The moment the rhythm steadies. Pop, snap, sigh, glow. Barnaby keeps notes as he works, scribbling into a soot-smudged notebook he stores in his apron. Crisp pop, he mutters. Gentle fizz. Bold snap. Very promising. He's convinced the fire is learning a sort of language, and he is determined to become fluent. Every so often, he adjusts the logs by a fraction of an inch, listening for the exact sound that makes the puddle wicks murmur a contented in their sleep. By midnight, the whole house is wrapped in a soft orange heartbeat. The flames talking quietly to themselves. Barnaby humming along. And the puddle wicks drifting in and out of the sweetest kind of dreams. Outside, sleep's filled slumbers, but inside this glowing house, there's a perfect arrangement of duties and dreams. One couple asleep, one man awake, and a fire performing proudly for its favorite audience. On the far edge of Sleepsville, where most people stop walking because the path decides it can't be bothered to continue, there sits a tiny house overlooking the ocean. It belongs to Lolly Driftwood, a young woman with sun-bleached hair, freckled cheeks, and a stubborn belief that no proper sleep can happen without waves thumping and whispering outside her window. She claims the sea has perfect timing, and no one argues, mostly because she looks like the sort of person who would drag you straight into an early morning swim to prove a point. Lolly's house leans slightly toward the water, as if it's trying to listen better. She leaves every window open, no matter the weather, because shutting out the ocean is unthinkable. Even her kettle rusts faster than it should, but she says that's just proof she's living right. At night, the breeze sweeps straight through her little rooms, carrying the steady rise and fall of waves. Some nights, the sea booms proudly. Other nights, it sighs like an old dog settling onto a cushion, and Lolly falls asleep instantly. Either way. During the day, she's usually out on her board, drifting just beyond the foam line, squinting at the horizon, as though waiting for the ocean to tell her a secret. The town has no idea how she stays upright at all hours. She seems to spend as much time balancing on waves as she does standing on actual floors. But by nightfall, she returns home, kicks off her sandy shoes at the door, and performs a little ritual. She checks the tide chart, pinned crookedly to her wall, and nods approvingly when she sees the numbers she likes. Inside her house, everything rattles gently when a strong wave hits the rocks below. Cups clink, a lamp gives a polite wobble. Lolly grins at every shake, as though the ocean is sending her personal messages. She climbs into bed and burrows into her blankets just as the waves begin their nightly rhythm. Thud, hush, thud, hush. By the time the moon settles overhead, Lolly is already deep asleep, her hair fanned across the pillow, like seaweed caught in a gentle tide. Outside, the ocean keeps working, tireless and steady, shaping the rocks and singing through the windows of her tilted little home. And while the rest of Sleepsville drifts under their clouds and fires and other curious contraptions, Lolly sleeps to the wild, rolling breath of the sea, her favorite lullaby, and the only one she'll ever need. On the inland side of Sleepsville, far from the sea, but close to the edge of common sense, stands a house that shakes ever so slightly, as though it's trying not to giggle. This is the home of Mrs. Thistlegrin, an old woman with bright eyes, wiry hair, and an obsession with trains so serious she once tried to steam a teapot for authenticity. Her greatest achievement isn't her garden or her prize-winning raspberry jam. No, it's her bedroom, which she has personally transformed into a fully functioning train carriage. Mrs. Thistlegrin insists she sleeps better when it feels like she's rattling across the countryside. And because Sleepsville allows a certain bend in the rules of reality, she's made that dream happen. Her bedroom walls are panelled with polished brass handles, soft green seats, and windows that show passing landscapes, even though technically the house isn't moving. The carriage sits on a tiny loop of track, lovingly laid by Mrs. Thistlegrin herself, which circles the room in a perfect oval. Every night, the wheels roll forward with a gentle clack, clack, clack. The sort that could lull even the most determined insomniac. The engine that powers this miniature marvel is tucked beneath her bed. A little brass machine shaped like a beetle, with a chimney poking out its back. When she presses a button on its shell, it bursts into action, puffing out warm vapor and sending the carriage into a slow, steady glide. She refers to the machine as Captain Whistlethorpe, speaks to it kindly, oils its joints every Thursday, and claims it understands her better than most humans. The captain hums proudly as the wheels turn, pleased to be fulfilling his nightly duty. Inside the carriage, Mrs. Thistlegrin settles herself on a padded bench, pulls a knitted blanket over her knees, and bobs gently with each movement of the track. She closes her eyes and smiles as the walls show rolling hills, distant towns, and the occasional field of sheep, who always seem to nod politely as they pass. None of these scenes are real, of course, but the carriage doesn't care. It presents them anyway, as if eager to make her sleep as delightful as possible. By the time the clock strikes 10, the room glides through its make-believe countryside. The soft clack-clack, the gentle sway, and the occasional friendly puff from Captain Whistlethorpe, blending into the perfect lullaby. Outside, the house looks perfectly ordinary, but inside, Mrs. Thistlegrin dozes on her perpetual nighttime journey, dreaming her way across miles of track without ever leaving her pillow. Deep in the woods, on the quieter side of Sleepsville, although all of it is quite quiet really, there's a place where the trees lean together like gossiping old friends, and there lives a man named Pippin Borlow. Pippin is the sort of fellow who collects nuts, even though he doesn't eat them, wears mismatched boots on purpose, and claims that trees get lonely if no one rustles them to sleep. He lives high above the ground in a rumbling treehouse that looks as though it sprouted naturally, despite the suspicious number of ladders sticking out at odd angles. Pippin's pride and joy is his wind machine, a round, clattering contraption built from bicycle parts, a weather vane, and a fan borrowed from a bakery that absolutely did not give him permission. He keeps it on a low setting every night, just enough to stir the branches into a gentle rustle. According to Pippin, the trees sleep better when they're reminded they're alive, which he says with such confidence that most people simply nod rather than attempt to disagree. When the machine starts up, the whole forest seems to sigh in appreciation. Leaves lift, settle, lift again, all in calm waves of movement. The sound is steady, unhurried, soft enough to soothe even the prickliest creatures. Birds tuck their heads beneath their wings. Foxes curl tighter in their dens. Even the owls, who are famously unimpressed by most things, blink slowly in approval. Pippin calls it his nightly lullaby, though it's really the trees that are being sung to. Inside the treehouse, the floorboards wobble gently beneath Pippin's feet as he checks the wind machine from his little lookout window. Lanterns sway, a teapot rattles, a pile of acorns in the corner shivers, and Pippin sits cross-legged on a cushion, stitched from old raincoats, and listens happily to the steady rustle drifting through the branches around him. He swears he can tell which trees fall asleep first by the way their leaves settle. By the time the night grows thick and the stars hide behind drifting wood smoke from elsewhere in Sleepsville, Pippin is already dozing off with a lopsided grin. The forest hums softly beneath him, wrapped in the gentle rustling that he orchestrates with such strange devotion. And while the rest of the town sleeps under clouds, fires, waves, or trains, Pippin slumbers in his treetop nest, rocked to sleep by the whispering trees. He's convinced are whispering right back. Near the middle of Sleepsville, in a house shaped suspiciously like a helmet, no one questions this anymore, lives the Nebbleton family. They are devoted, absolutely, wholeheartedly devoted to the sound of outer space. Not the dramatic sort you hear in films, but the soft, steady rumble they insist must be happening somewhere far beyond the moon. They fall asleep to it every single night, and they take the whole operation so seriously that guests are required to sign a no interruptions after 9 o'clock agreement. The Nebbletons don't simply play a recording. Oh no, that would be far too ordinary for them. Instead, they've built a peculiar device called the cosmic resonator. It occupies an entire room and looks like a cross between a telescope, a tuba, and a misplaced washing machine. Mr. Nebbleton swears the thing listens to the sky, then translates what it hears into the low, soothing rumble he calls cosmic comfort. Whether the machine is actually receiving anything from beyond the stars is anyone's guess, but it hums convincingly enough to make the whole family grin proudly. Every evening, Mrs. Nebbleton wanders from room to room, tightening bolts, polishing small brass knobs, and tapping the resonator's long copper tube with a wooden spoon to wake it up. Their 3 children scramble excitedly into their beds, wearing matching pajamas covered in planets that are definitely not drawn to scale. When the resonator switches on, the lights in the house blink in a friendly sort of way, as though signaling liftoff, and that familiar low rumble fills every hallway and pillow. Inside the bedrooms, star charts glow faintly on the ceiling. The walls give a soft tremble with each pulse of the resonator. The children whisper theories about what the sound really is. The heartbeat of a sleeping galaxy, perhaps, or a giant cosmic whale gliding through the dark. Mr. Nebbleton, who loves a good story as much as a good gadget, tells them that nobody knows for sure, which is precisely why it's such a perfect bedtime sound. The imagination does the rest. By 9:30, the house vibrates with a steady, soothing space hum. The children drift off first, dreaming of floating. Mrs. Nebbleton falls asleep next, holding a book she never gets past the first page of. And finally, Mr. Nettleton nods off beside the resonator. Outside, Sleepsville remains grounded as always. But inside this peculiar home, the Nettletons drift peacefully through an imaginary universe of their own making. Down at the far end of Sleepsville, where the ground dips slightly, as if bowing toward the water, sits a crooked little cottage beside the river. This cottage belongs to Ripley Merrin, a gentle, lanky fellow with a permanent splash of mud on one boot and the calmest expression in the entire town. Ripley loves the river more than most people love their birthdays. He says the sound of moving water is life's best lullaby, and his whole house is arranged so he never misses a single ripple. Ripley keeps every window open, even in winter, because he believes glass muffles the river's voice. He's built little funnels along the window frames to direct the sound straight into his bedroom. If you step inside, quietly, because the floorboards are shy, you'll notice the walls lean ever so slightly toward the riverbank, as if the whole cottage wants to listen with him. The water outside rushes along at a steady pace, occasionally nudging a pebble or brushing against reeds that sway like sleepy dancers. Each night, just after supper, Ripley performs a small ritual. He walks down to the river's edge, dips a hand into the water, and thanks it politely, as though it's doing him a personal favor. Then he checks the little wooden wheel he built at the bank, which turns slowly as the current pushes through it. The wheel doesn't power anything. Ripley simply claims it helps the river express itself. No one knows what that means, but the wheel spins faithfully all the same. Inside his bedroom, The sound of the river fills every corner. It trickles, it murmurs, it rushes with a soft enthusiasm that only moving water seems capable of. Ripley lies in bed, with one ear tilted toward the window, grinning each time the current changes tone. Sometimes it gurgles gently, like someone telling a quiet joke. Other times it laps against the banks with a calm, steady rhythm that makes the whole house settle deeper into its foundations. By the time the moon rests above the treetops, Ripley is already fast asleep, lulled by the steady flow that has kept him company since childhood. Outside, the river keeps moving, never hurried, never bored, always humming its patient nighttime tune. And in that little cottage, leaning toward the bank, Ripley sleeps soundly, trusting the river to sing him all the way through till morning. At the very edge of Sleepsville, where the hedges are trimmed so neatly they look frightened of misbehaving, stands the enormous estate of Lady Petunia Plushbury. Lady Plushbury is wealthy in the way only someone who collects antique umbrellas and forgets where she puts them can be. She claims she cannot, absolutely cannot sleep unless she is being driven smoothly around in a car. Not for 10 minutes, not for an hour, but for the entire night. So, naturally, she built her own track. It loops around her property like a sleepy giant figure of 8, wide and perfect. People in town say she hired 3 different engineers because she didn't trust anyone who blinked too often. When the track was finished, she stationed a grand gleaming car beside it, long, quiet, and fitted with a plush bed in the back. Not just any bed, mind you. One big enough to make the driver nervous every time he takes a corner. Her chauffeur, Mr. Smudgley, is a thin man with excellent posture and no fear of long hours. His entire job, and he accepts it with solemn pride, is to drive Lady Plushbury in endless circles from dusk till dawn. As soon as the sun dips, Lady Plushbury appears at the door, wearing a silk dressing gown and an eye mask that could probably pay for a small cottage. She climbs into the bed, adjusts her pillows like a queen arranging her throne, and gives one delicate tap on the door to signal begin. Once they start moving, the whole estate hums with a sort of dignified drowsiness. The car glides along the track without a single jolt, the engine purring like a well-fed cat. Lady Plushbury lies on her side, wrapped in blankets so soft they seem to drape themselves. She falls asleep within minutes. Always. Mr. Smudgley drives with a calm, steady rhythm, occasionally straightening his gloves, even though no one can see him. He never strays from the track. He knows every curve, as though it's a well-rehearsed dance. By 3 in the morning, Lady Plushbury is deep in dreams, occasionally mumbling instructions such as "Slower round the tulip bend, Smudgley," even though he is already doing exactly that. By dawn, she wakes refreshed, delighted, and entirely certain that no other method of sleep could ever suit her. And so, her nightly circuit continues, making her the only woman in Sleepsville who literally sleeps in circles. On the bend of a quiet street, in a house that shivers politely every night at precisely 9:30, lives a retired inventor named Thaddeus Plume. Thaddeus is a wiry, bright-eyed man who insists that nothing, absolutely nothing puts him to sleep better than the steady patter of rain, and, this is the important bit, the low roll of distant thunder. Most people might reach for a recording, but Thaddeus is not most people. Thaddeus has built an entire thunder cabinet in his basement, and he treats it with the reverence of a conductor preparing his orchestra. The thunder cabinet is an enormous wooden wardrobe fitted with a remarkable assortment of parts: great round drums, copper tubes, tin sheets that wobble dramatically, and a row of metal bowls that hum when struck. All of it is connected by a single crank that Thaddeus turns each night. When he gives it a confident twist, the whole contraption comes alive with a low, velvety rumble. Thunder, softened for sleep. The house trembles in a pleased sort of way, like an old dog thumping its tail. The rain sound comes from an equally absurd invention, fixed along the rafters of his bedroom ceiling. Thaddeus has built a series of narrow channels and tiny valves that allow droplets of water to fall in controlled patterns onto a polished stone slab beside his bed. Not on the bed. He learned that lesson the damp way. The effect is gentle, steady, hypnotic. It never splashes. It just tap-taps with perfect rhythm, adjusting itself automatically if Thaddeus mutters, "A little heavier, please," while fluffing his pillow. Once the storm is underway, Thaddeus settles beneath his blanket, wearing a striped nightcap that always slips sideways as soon as he lies down. He listens carefully as the thunder rolls softly through the floorboards, mingling with the crisp raindrops falling from his peculiar ceiling system. He nods in satisfaction when the timing aligns. Rumble, patter, rumble, as though the basement and bedroom are performing a duet written exclusively for him. By the time the house reaches its nightly crescendo, the rumbling dips into a slow, drowsy rhythm, Thaddeus is already drifting, his glasses sliding down his nose, a faint smile forming as the storm he's built wraps around him like a warm blanket. Outside, Sleepsville remains calm and quiet, unaware of the handcrafted tempest humming through the inventor's home. Inside, Thaddeus sleeps soundly to the gentle storm he created, a small, private thundercloud just for him. Above Sleepsville, the night settles like a gentle blanket, and from high overhead, the whole town looks wonderfully odd and wonderfully peaceful. The cloud above Mr. Crumplepatch's roof glows faintly as it rains its perfectly measured drizzle. The Puddlewick's fire sends a soft pulse of orange through their windows. Lolly Driftwood's tilted seaside house leans happily into the waves. Mrs. Thistlegrin's tiny train carriage circles its loop with a polite clack. Pippin Forlow's forest rustles with its nightly whisper. The Nebbletons float through their homemade universe of steady space hum. Ripon Merrin's river murmurs its slow lullaby. Lady Plushberry glides through the dark on her silvery track, and Thaddeus Plume's handcrafted thunder rolls sleepily under the floorboards. All across Sleepsville, each home hums with its chosen sound. Each dream weaves softly into the next, until the whole place feels like a single enormous breath, drifting in and out. And so the town of Sleepyheads slumbers on, perfectly content, each person held gently by the sound they love most.